Hey everyone, welcome back to K-Korner, the channel where we dive into the wild world of entitled people and their unbelievable stories. Hope you enjoy it, and without further ado, let's go. In my old job, we had a great boss and hybrid work. If we had any reason not to come to the office, just a message to him an extra remote day would be approved. Then he was let go, and we got a new boss, who was exact opposite of her predecessor. This happened a few weeks after our old boss was let go, and his boss became our new boss. One morning I wasn't feeling well, too sick to travel to the office, not too sick to work from home. I had a couple of remote meetings with customers, so it was just easier to me to work while being a little sick than try to reschedule. I spoke with my boss in Slack, and a conversation was like this. Me, good morning. I have a sore throat and a slight fever. I'll be working from home today, so no need to reschedule anything. Boss, our employer handbook clearly states that remote days are Tuesday and Thursday and exceptions need a pre-approved by the manager. I was pissed. Is she really trying to force me to the office, even I'm sick? Or what was her motive? But then it hit me it doesn't matter, and our discussion continued. Me, oh, sorry, that's true. Me, I have a sore throat and a slight fever. I'm unable to come to the office, so I'm taking a sick day. Could you ask someone to reschedule the meetings with customer A and customer B since I'm recovering at home, at least for today? Me, the employer handbook states that I can take 3 sick days in a row without a doctor's note. But I'm willing to make an exception if you want to, and get you one. Do you want it? I was left on read for 10 minutes. She started typing, deleted the text, started again, and deleted it again. She was active in our chat for entire 10 minutes until I finally got a response. Boss, no, that won't be necessary. I'll ask someone to reschedule those meetings. Get well soon. My colleagues almost died on laughter when I told them why I'm having a sick day and not just work from home. Our boss didn't like me after that, but the feeling was mutual. I left the company later for a new job, but not before she was fired. Edit. Thank you so much for upvotes. Several people are asking for why she was fired. I wrote it in one comment, but I'll write a longer version here. She was commercial director. Last year, before she joined the company, it made 606 gear profit. In her first year, 413 gear, second year won a cure, and she was fired at the end of the third. Numbers aren't public yet, but they're similar to the last year if they somehow managed to stay profitable at all. She had previous experience from companies over 20 times bigger than that, and she was hired to help the company grow to the next level. Unfortunately, her skills were just to implement heavy processes and stiff organizational model. Her commercial department had 7 people working under her, and there was 4 sub-departments: sales, productization, account management, and marketing. 4 in sales, 2 in productization, 1 in account management and marketing was handled by an outside contractor. We had 26 employees in total. We in sales were completely a new business, and after we had a signed agreement, account management took the contact role. Our former boss was head of sales, and he suggested that salesperson could be the contact for the first year, or even handle possible upselling, selling more to the current customer. But the commercial director didn't even let him finish before said no. So the company lost a lot of money when not doing the upsell. It's pretty common that companies start with a small deal with a new software and expand the use step by step. For some reason, this wasn't an option if the customer didn't specifically ask us to provide more licenses. She was there before I was, but during my time, she focused on standardizing the sales process, which led to us losing the sales and bringing in less money. For example, we couldn't modify text and proposals for the customers without asking a permission from productization, and even after that, only marketing would be allowed to make changes. And this was even in situations where the customer didn't want some feature our product had. We couldn't even remove the text about it. I once counted that my proposal introduced 11 features, and 9 of them were completely irrelevant to the customer. 2 of them were something that the customer had explicitly stated that they didn't want those. This was a software, so it had some features customers didn't use, but they didn't affect the pricing, so it didn't matter. It led to situations where we heard from the customers that we focused in completely unrelated things. Not those which were relevant to the customer, and their board chose another vendor, even if the internal champion believed we were much better, which we said would happen before this new model was implemented. Some other standardizations lead to the situations where owners ask something for us to do something, and we had to decline since we weren't allowed to do that. They respected her role, even when they didn't agree with her decisions. But it's hard to believe that it didn't affect her termination. She costed about 2 million euros to the company, and that doesn't even include her salary. And for the top of that, she turned the company culture to something the owners didn't like. So she was expensive, difficult person, and hard to work with. So when my grandma was younger, she moved from the countryside to the big city to get a higher paying job. Me and my mom were both born and raised in the big city, where we still live in the house she left us here. She's much older now, and she moved back to her summer home in the countryside, living there full time because, in her words, it is quieter there and I am too old to handle the city nowadays. Better leave it to the youngsters. She does come to visit us every few months or so and stays with us for a few weeks. She spends these weeks complaining about how the world has gone crazy and the city is not like what it used to be before. People are so rude nowadays, yada yada, typical boomer stuff. Also, despite our protests, she insists on helping around the house, doing our shopping from her own money, and taking on the chores, claiming me and my mom work too much. On one of these days, she decided to go shopping. She has to take me shopping with herself because she can't carry all the bags anymore. Since she always insists on buying too many stuff we don't need, but we know she just wants to help our groceries budget. And she can't take my mom because my mom won't let her pay. I can't talk back to her like my mom, so I usually go with her. If this is a thing in other countries, but here, there are usually special offers like if your total is above X amount, you get a special discount on an item. Today it was a packet of black tea. Now we hate black tea as a family. My emotionally abusive dad loved black tea, and he would talk me and my mom's ears off about his tea time, order us around to bring him his tea at specific times with very specific brewing methods. He would never differentiate between the taste if we brewed it wrong, though. I know this I would spit in his tea and purposely make things wrong, and he would never realize. He would pitch a fit if we did it wrong when he was watching us brew it, though. This is off topic, but I just want you to understand that we have trauma about black tea and never had it in the house after we kicked his ass to the curb. But this makes us an extremely weird case as a bunch of black tea haters, since we live in one of those tea-loving reputation countries and black tea is one of our cultural identities. Anyways, back to the story. So we are waiting in line and there is this Karen in front of us berating the cashier about not scanning items fast enough. She barks, "Add the special discount tea after you're done too." We're already annoyed because she has this screechy voice. I'm starting to think all Karens generally get that kind of voice because every word that comes out of their mouths is so unpleasant. Their vocal cords start rotting. Cashier warned her that her total did not add up to the required amount, so she won't get the discount. She can still buy it from the regular price, though. Karen has a brilliant idea, and she suddenly sweetens her voice. "Oh, just add mine to this auntie's if she does come up with that amount, please." She gestures to Grandma, without even looking at us once like we don't actually exist. Now, Grandma takes no shit from anyone, and in true boomer fashion, she can be a bit of a Karen herself, so I immediately grab her arm to prevent her from starting shit. Cashier thankfully takes over and says, "I can't do that, ma'am. This lady might also want the item for herself." Karen, still not having acknowledged us, counters with, "But I have kids at home. Do you want them to starve?" "Seriously, lady, it's tea. You know they'll be more hungry if they drink it." Grandma gestures to me, her 182 cms tall granddaughter, and yells, "Well, I have kids too, and I'm going to get that tea. You can pay the full price for all I care." Karen looks me up and down. I guess she has a right to do so because, well, I'm pretty big, twice the size of my tiny grandma even, so it actually looks funny. Nevertheless, she tries again, her voice less sweet and more commanding this time. "Come on, Auntie, don't be a mean old lady. My kids need the tea. They really like this brand, and they've been doing very good at school, so they deserve it. Just give it to us." With this, my grandma launches into a tirade about how rude youngsters like her are nowadays, how she didn't even ask first or offer to pay, how her kids deserve a better mother before they deserve some tea, how I probably deserve it more than her kids because I just started my first job after graduating. Seriously, was that part necessary? How she should mind her own appearance before assuming someone is their auntie, etc., etc. Karen knows she can't win against the tiny grandma at this point. She pays in a hurry during this lecture and scurry out the door. Oh well, now I'm just worried about Grandma's heart rate at this point. We bought the tea and brought it home anyways. We're gonna bake a cake and try drinking it. Now my grandma is pestering me, asking me if I have any leftover dye, and can I please dye her hair because, in her words, these dumbasses see her gray hair and think her as an easy target. Are you sure you want pink hair, Grandma? Oh, and she's also complaining to my mom that I held her back and she couldn't pull the hair extensions off of that witch one by one, make her eat them. You have a weak heart, old lady. Sit down. The morale of the story is, the best way to deal with Karens is to be a Karen herself, I guess. Most of you know me, but for those that don't, here is a brief backstory. I am 33 female, and I double RN for a local clinic during the day and ER overnight. I'm married with 3 children, on with the post. It was an ordinary day at the clinic. There wasn't much going on since Kevin, just dealing with the usual PTE patient, woes, cough, sneezing, or minor bodily injury when a young man, let's call him Todd, enters with his service dog, a beautiful border collie. Naturally, the dog brings out all the ladies in the office, myself included. My administrative assistant, nicknamed Nicole, does her regular scripted greeting towards the patient and asks the young man what brings him in. He has come in because he wasn't feeling well. The AA gets him started with the paperwork while myself and the MMA medical assistant and Rad Tech are making cooing towards this sweet fur baby. While the PT is filling out the paperwork, this small conversation took place. Me. Hi, sir. How are you today? What brings you in? Todd. Well, you see, I haven't been feeling well. I'm having difficulty breathing in out of my nose and congested in my chest. Me. I'm so sorry to hear that. Can I ask, why do you have a service dog? We are legally allowed to ask this question due to ADA guidelines. Todd. Oh, I was born with Usher syndrome. Me. What is Usher syndrome? Todd. Usher syndrome is where over time you progressively lose your ability to see or ability to see, or hear. In my case, it started when I left my mom. Yeah, because of my condition, I have also developed an anxiety condition that Abby was trained to sense and cue me down. Me. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, sir. Please don't hesitate to call or ask us for help filling out any of the paperwork. Todd. Oh, thank you, but that won't be necessary. I can see a little, but some things are blurry. But thanks for asking. Me. Oh, sure, sir. If you need any assistance, let us know. By the way, your doggo is really sweet. What breed is she? Todd. Oh, Abby. She's a 3-year-old boarder, and she's been my best friend for years. I don't know what I would do without her. I've raised her since she was a pup. Me. Oh, how sweet. Well, I best be getting back to work. I'll be seeing you and Ms. Abby, I ruffle the pup's collar in just a minute. Let me or Nicole know if you need anything. We part ways briefly to go get the room ready for Todd and Abby. That's when we hear the door chime, indicating that another visitor has entered the facility. Per Nicole, she introduced our Karen. This woman looks like a version of Kirstie Alley, hands her the necessary paperwork, and Karen goes to sit down only a few seats down from Todd. Todd gets up to hand Nicole the paperwork he's filled out. Abby perks up and helps Todd across the room. Karen apparently didn't like this and keeps grunting and throwing nasty looks in Todd and Abby's direction. Todd and Abby takes their seat and is waiting on myself and Ma to bring them to the back. Karen gets up and approaches Nicole. Karen, here you go. She hands back the clipboard with the paperwork. Nicole. Mom, I'm so sorry, but I noticed you haven't completed your paperwork. Is there something I could help you with? Karen. No, I don't feel comfortable in here. Nicole. I'm sorry to hear that. Can I ask how I can make you feel more welcome? Karen. Why, yes, you can start by removing that filthy flea bag. Nicole. Mom, I'm sorry, but that is something I cannot do. Karen. Why not? It's unsanitary to have a filthy animal in a sterile field. That dog doesn't belong in here. Perfect timing. Poor Abby perks her ears up as she is hearing an ambulance pass by the clinic with its horn blaring. Brings to Hal. Karen. Oh, shut up, you filthy flea bag. She screeches at the dog, shut that stupid mutt up. Todd. I'm so sorry. Shush. Abby pulls on her lead and tries to get Abby to settle down. She doesn't often do this. Karen. Bullshit. That mangy mutt probably isn't a real service dog anyway. Probably just bought the vest off eBay, lying sus ahead. Nicole. Ma'am, I'm sorry, but you cannot be approaching our other patients, or the dog. The dog is a service dog for this patient. Please lower your voice. It may disturb the other patients in the office. He tries to redirect Carney. Would you like my help filling out your paperwork so you can be seen by the provider? Karen, no. I want this mutt removed and to speak to your provider. Nicole, sure, ma'am. Nicole places a brief call to the back nurse station and requests that I come to the front and gives a brief indication that there is an urgent matter happening out front. So I get up and go to the front where I greet and meet out Karen. Me. Hi, ma'am. How are you doing today? Karen. Not so good, honey. You see, I came in here because I'm experiencing a lady problem, and this beast here keeps making inappropriate noises and stinks. I've asked your receptionist here to do her job and get that beast out of here, and she refuses to kick that kid and his mutt out. It's just not okay. Me. Oh, well, I'm so sorry to hear that. What noises are you hearing that you find inappropriate? Karen. It's howling, panting, and it's just so nasty and unsanitary. Me. I'm sorry, ma'am, but per the ADA, we cannot discriminate against the disabled or prevent them from using a service animal. Karen. What? He's abusing that animal. How can you people be so cruel and disgusting? You'll burn in hell, you piece of crap, as she wags her finger at Todd. Me. Ma'am, that is enough. You're going to have to calm down or I'm going to have to ask you to leave. There's no need for that name-calling or for this issue to escalate. The dog is a service animal and is here to assist his owner in daily tasks. Now, if you would like to still be seen by myself or my provider, I can go ahead and take you to the back and have you wait in an exam room. Karen, really? I want to see that mutt's papers. She approaches Todd with her hand out, demanding for his registration papers. Me. Ma'am, I get between her and Todd to prevent Karen from getting too close to Todd. That is not necessary, and you're not allowed to ask anyone for proof of identification or medical necessity. I think it's best you find another physician's group to care for you, as we won't be able to help you today. Karen. How dare you! Why can't you see me? And why do I have to leave? That monster and his filthy mutt should leave, as she argues, and I demand you kick them out now. Ma'am, I've asked you to stop yelling. I am sorry, ma'am, but I will not be able to treat you today as you're acting very inappropriate and causing a commotion here. Could you please leave? Karen. Oh, shut up. I can do and say whatever the hell I want to. And I will not leave until I am seen and that monster with his mutt are thrown out. While my back and attention was focused on Karen, Abby had gotten up and was alerting to her owner's distress cues from Todd. All of Karen's screaming had begun to make Todd panic. That's when Todd stood up, grabs Abby's lead, and just collapses on the floor after slightly hitting one of the other chairs in the waiting room. I quickly turn around and rush to Todd and order Nicole to get the ma and other on. Karen. Oh, stop faking it, you stupid idiot, scuffing and approaches Todd. She kicks his boot, trying to make him move. Nicole returns with my ma and Arn. While all three of us attend to Todd, Nicole asks for Karen to step back a bit. Karen, why the hell do I have to step back? He's faking it. Get that damn mutt out of here. I told you this was no place for him. Me. Shut the hell up, damn it. Not my finest hour, but I was panicked and irritated at this woman's audacity. The whole room goes quiet. This would be one of the very rare occasions that I've ever gotten this angry. I call over my shoulder for Nicole to phone for the authorities and an ambulance. I proceed to position Todd on his back with the help of the RN. I check his airways and use my hands to feel the back of his neck and head to make sure there's no bleeding or swelling. I also use my stethoscope to check his heart and lungs. I then proceed to try and wake Todd up. He is not responding. I take out my ophthalmoscope from my scrub jacket's pocket and try to look into Todd's eyes. I check his pulse and ask my RN to get his blood pressure and pulse oximeter using her wrist cuff. I speak over my shoulder to my MA to start an IV line. I don't think it's life-threatening, but I don't want to risk it, with how quickly Todd went down. Besides, he did say he was having issues breathing, and I know we do not have that type of equipment within the office if he begins to code. The longest 20 minutes of my life and an IV drip started. Todd is on the gurney bed of an ambulance and is being loaded into the back of it. I turned to the local authorities that followed the ambulance and asked them to remove Karen from the premises. Karen, but you haven't even asked about how I was doing. Ma'am, you'd be lucky that I don't personally press charges against you for assaulting myself, my staff, and that patient. You should be ashamed of yourself. Karen, oh, pish posh. I did nothing wrong. You should be arrested for allowing that beast in here. Officer, Enough is enough. Karen, please follow me. Karen, Bobby babe, but officer dragged her out of the office. The office did press for a trespassing ordinance against Karen and escorted her out of the building. We haven't seen or heard from her since. As for Todd, and thanks to one of the daytime employees at the local ER, Todd is doing much better and needed it to be observed overnight due to his head trauma and cardiac arrhythmia, just for precautions. He made a full recovery. When his relatives arrived at the hospital, the parents pressed assault charges against the Karen. I have been in communication with their attorney. I will update you when I get any additional information. Enjoying the stories yet? If you do, please subscribe, like, and comment. I posted this on the Karen stories, but I thought maybe someone here would find the story interesting. Sorry if I made any mistakes with pronouns or anything. English isn't my first language, and I'm kind of learning on my own. Well, in the country where I live, it's common for people to do one big shopping trip per month right after they get paid. I'm not sure how it works in other countries, but just to let you know, during the first week of the month, it's impossible to go to the supermarket without knowing that you'll wait at least 1 hour in line on a good day, so people are naturally irritable and nervous already. So here it goes. I was shopping for my house and my dad was shopping for his. My siblings Joe, 17, Emily, 15, and Manuel, 3, were with my dad. We finished our shopping, and when it was time to pay, we split into 2 checkout lines. I went to a regular line, and my dad went to a priority service line. Emily has Asperger's, I think that's how it's spelled, and cerebral palsy, which you hardly notice due to years of physiotherapy. Manuel has a different degree of autism, the more common type where you see kids not eating, refusing to speak, having anger outbursts, etc. It's not as severe as him not being able to speak, but if something bothers him, he has rage outbursts that honestly, if I were in my parents' place, I wouldn't have the patience to deal with. So there we were, me in the right checkout line and my dad in the left one. My line was much longer, with about 5 full shopping carts ahead of me, but my dad's line only had 2. And he was the last one in his line. I don't know who was the first person since I didn't pay attention, but then a few minutes later I saw a woman with fire in her eyes approaching my dad's shopping cart. She was with her husband in a baby carriage with a very young child, maybe 6 months old or less. Even though there was no one behind my dad and both lines were long, she parked the baby carriage right next to his, almost pushing my siblings who were standing there. When she saw little Manuel sitting in a milk crate inside the cart, her anger didn't go away, she just had to find another victim. She couldn't scream at my dad anymore, so she looked ahead and saw the couple. It was a couple with a young daughter, around 6 years old. They had a very full shopping cart, more than most people, and they were starting to scan their items. Karen one then started complaining to my dad, still standing beside the couple, leaving her husband uncomfortably behind, about how there were people who go where they shouldn't and shouldn't be shopping in that line. Then the woman had a rage outburst, pushing my sister aside and intervening between her and the family, demanding that they leave, saying they shouldn't even be allowed there. The cashier, poor thing, was taken aback, as well as the family, and half the people there were watching the scene. She demanded that they leave and call the manager to demonstrate how absurd it was. The family offered to move to another line, but at that moment the manager arrived and allowed the family to proceed with their shopping, informing the woman that she should wait. The woman went berserk, returned to the baby carriage, and started yelling, talking to my dad about it. She then tried to incite my dad to do something about it too. Her husband was quiet in the line, and my dad just nodded and tried to change the subject. That's when I intervened and said to her, Look, my mom always taught me never to do that. It's extremely rude after all. How can you know if someone has a disability or not? My sister has autism, but she doesn't have a sign hanging on her. You never know. So out of politeness, don't scream at people. Karen 1. They don't have anything. Imagine her yelling and getting angry, saying that. She seemed embarrassed, not as much as my poor sister, who by this point looked like a tomato. Karen seemed completely insane by my comment, and I swear I made it in a polite manner. I don't like arguing with people like that, but that woman was extremely loud and disruptive. She started screaming and getting angry, took out her phone and shoved it in the cashier's face, filming everything, yelling that she was going to take everyone to court, that it was absurd, that she was going to report it to the owners, and all that talk. Then when she realized her gesture wasn't getting her anywhere, She stormed off angrily and went to another checkout. By the way, she went to the business checkout where it's for people buying with business numbers, but somehow they allowed her to go through, I guess to avoid more drama. The cashier was visibly nervous. I felt really sorry for her. So I continued scanning my items because my line was moving faster. One thing to note, in the right checkout line, I was basically with my back to my dad, facing the checkout on the other side. Then something caught my attention when a woman exclaimed, "Karen, 2, what?" very loudly. The cashier on my right was serving an elderly couple, while behind them in line there were a mother, Karen 2, and her teenage daughter. The cashier repeated herself, and this time I heard her say that it might take a little longer because they had a problem. Then the woman replied, "Karen 2, did I ask you for something? Why are you telling me this?" "Right, cashier. Ma'am, I was just informing you that..." "Karen 2, I don't want to know. I didn't ask you for anything. Just do your job." The cashier didn't really know what to do, so she repeated that she was just letting them know it might take a little longer, and the woman went crazy. She was hostile, I would say, while the other Karen seemed crazy. It would have been interesting to see a fight between them. The cashier looked at the manager who was behind me, and then at me. I shrugged and laughed because the situation was so surreal. I heard the woman insulting and cursing the cashier to her daughter, but I didn't pay much attention and couldn't hear it clearly. But the cashier just smiled a little and continued her work. When I went to help my dad pack his things, I talked to the cashier who was filmed, and she admitted that she was shaking. My siblings and I laughed about the situation and tried to lighten the mood. In the end, she said something like, "Priority lane cashier. It's so nice to serve nice people after that." I was almost about to quit because I was so nervous, and I don't know how to handle this. We comforted her and left. Neither Karen 1 nor Karen 2 had left yet. Maybe this wasn't even the end of the story, but it was what I could see. 2, 1 on each side, in less than 10 minutes. I thought it was a record, at least for me, Note, maybe it's just my perspective or the things that happened to my mom because my sister doesn't have any visible disability at first glance, but I know how bad it feels when people question your problems like that. Yes, there will be people who cut in line maliciously and without needing to. There will be people like that couple who probably didn't even notice. The signs are very small, but you have to swallow it and act correctly even when others don't. This is a very unserious and low-stakes petty revenge story. Background: my F-32, File 67, is a stereotypical grumpy old man. My husband, 33, says that his father wasn't always like this, but the years have turned him sour. My file is always complaining about something, constantly going on right-wing political tangents, always inserting his opinion even if he isn't involved in the conversation, and constantly whining that my husband and I never make time for him, despite having him over for dinner every other week. My husband tolerates but doesn't entertain his grumpiness. I handle it like I would handle an incoherent toddler, and just reply, "Wow, what an interesting thing to say," and then move along the conversation as if he weren't there. Recently, my husband and I completely reorganized our kitchen. As most people do, we had far too many coffee mugs. We decided to get rid of half of them, about 17, so we put them in a box and set them aside to be donated. That evening, Phil came over for dinner and noticed the box of mugs by the front door. When he asked about it, we just said we had too many and needed to get rid of some. He immediately started rambling on about how wasteful our generation is. How we use something for 30 seconds and then throw it away. How his generation would always use an item until it fell apart, and then they would mend the item and keep on using it. He finished it off by saying someone his age would never consider discarding perfectly good items like that. I just responded with okay and continued on getting dinner ready without addressing it further. Well, this last weekend we had our Christmas celebration with my husband's family. We celebrated early due to multiple family members going out of state for Christmas. We enjoyed our evening despite a few grumblings from my file. Towards the end of the night, we all exchanged gifts. That was when my file opened a big box of 17 used coffee mugs. He looked at my husband with a confused look on his face. "So my husband said you were so vocal about how we shouldn't get rid of perfectly good mugs, so we decided to gift them to you since you clearly wanted them." My file started making excuses about how he didn't need that many and how he already had mugs and doesn't have the space to keep them. My husband just shrugged and said, "I'm sure you'll find something to do with them." Your generation is very resourceful. It's only been 2 days since he got his new mug collection, but he's called my husband and me 7 times trying to convince us to take back the mug. All I've said was it would be wasteful for us to take them back. Thank you so much for saving the perfectly good mugs. Update. Back in December, I, 33, posted about how my file berated my husband, 34, and me for being wasteful when he found out we were getting rid of an excessive amount of coffee mugs from our home. We originally planned on donating the mugs, but since File was greatly offended by us getting rid of them, he thought we were throwing them away even though we never even said that. We decided to gift him all 17 mugs for Christmas. He was not pleased. It's been about 4 months since this incident. Grumpy File eventually stopped trying to get us to take the mugs back and just accepted his new collection. My husband's family is rather large, and we've celebrated a few birthdays these past few months. Phil has decided to include a coffee mug in people's presents. My husband and I each got one back on our birthdays. My little niece got one for her 4th birthday, and he even sent one to his ex-wife, Mill, for her birthday. It's become a running joke now that everyone will receive a mug, and every mug will continue to be re-gifted. Phil's birthday is in June, so all of us plan on wrapping up the mugs we've been re-gifted and giving them back to File. File is still as grumpy as ever, but at least he turned this petty revenge into a funny family joke. During my last few high school years and early university years, I worked part-time in a supermarket at the checkout department. Of course, you would see your fair share of Karens and Richards and Kevins and entitled parents, entitled kids, etc. But no one in that store was more infuriating to deal with than the most recently hired supervisor. She was the kind of supervisor that would deny paid overtime if you did not give 4 weeks' notice, despite all of our contracts stating we only needed to give 2 weeks' notice. But then when you tried to give 4 weeks' notice, she would say it was too long ago. I do not remember you asking me. At the time of this story, I had worked at this store for quite a few years, and every Christmas season I would say the same things to the supervisors. I don't have any plans. I'm not leaving town, so if you need me for extra shifts, just put me down whenever you need me, just as long as I finish. By 9:30 p.m., they knew I would not care if it was any day of the week, just a 4-hour shift or 11-hour shift. I was completely free with no plans, totally flexible and able to work mostly whenever. My only condition was that I had to be done by 9:30 p.m. This was because I had not yet gotten my full driver's license, and it was illegal for me to drive by myself without some kind of supervisor between the hours of 10 p.m. 5 a.m. The store was open from 8 a.m. 10 p.m., so out of those 14 hours I could not work 0.5 of them. It was a good system and led to me doing a lot of extra shifts, with a lot of them being last minute. Early November, the new supervisor asked me about my December and January availability, and I said the same old song. You can put me down for extra shifts, as much as you like, whenever for any day, as long as I'm done by 9:30 p.m. She asked why 9:30 p.m., and then I explained to her about my driver's license. She just nodded and walked away. Mid-November rolled around and the December schedule was released. I was given plenty of extra shifts, as per usual, but you might have seen this coming. I was scheduled for 6 days a week, which would have been all good with me, except for the fact that 5 of them ended at 10 p.m. I found the supervisor as soon as I saw the schedule and reiterated that I cannot work past 9:30 p.m. The conversation, something like this. Supervisor, but you can still work until 10 p.m. Me, I can't or else I'll be driving illegally, and I'm not going to do that. Supervisor, yes, but there are plenty other ways you can get yourself home. Me, like what? Supervisor, have your family pick you up? Me, no, they're in and out of town on business. Supervisor, you can take the bus. Me, no, it arrived every hour, 10 to the hour. I'm not working until 10, then waiting outside in the dark alone until 10:50 p.m. I was 19 female at the time. Supervisor, what about Uber? Me, I'm not working all day just to spend it all on an Uber to get home. Supervisor, well then, you will need to find someone to fill in those shifts for you. Me, nope. According to my contract, I don't. Then she just walks away. I'm left there speechless. Later that same shift, when she was the only supervisor around, she completely left me out to dry with a horrid customer who could not use the self-service checkouts to save his life and took it all out on me. We've all seen horrible people like that, but this guy in particular was so bad. Coworkers, even those from different departments, kept coming up to me asking if I was okay after dealing with that guy. Not my supervisor, though. After I got home that day, I was done. I sent out CV after CV on job websites. My mentality was, if I'm going to get paid minimum wage, I might as well do it somewhere better. Within a few days, I had a retail store asking me to come in for an interview. Within the next week, I had that new job lined up and ready to go, so I went back to the supermarket on my next shift and handed in my 2 weeks' notice. All my other supervisors were gutted that I was leaving. I'm not saying I'm some star employee, but I was always keen on extra shifts. Barely took sick leave off, was so chill and willing to do a lot of the side tasks that no one else wanted to do, like collect the shopping carts in the rain or empty the rubbish bins. And I just knew a lot of stuff about the checkouts in general. And I was gutted I wouldn't be working with them anymore, but working with that one bad supervisor hurt more than working without others. The day I handed in my notice, bad supervisor wasn't working. I didn't see her until a few days later when she stopped me near the back of the store around a few other coworkers. I'm guessing that she wasn't too happy she just lost a de facto full-timer just before the Christmas rush. She seemed a bit flustered, but still had that fake smile of hers on. Supervisor, so I heard you're leaving soon. Me, cheerfully, yup, in just under 2 weeks. Supervisor, but you've worked here for quite some time. Any particular reason why you're leaving so quickly? Me, with the biggest grin I've ever had on my face. I already told you why. I'm not working those 10 p.m. shifts. It was beautiful. Within a split second of me saying that, her smile dropped and she just stared at me, speechless. This time, it was my turn to just walk away. You don't quit bad jobs, you quit bad management, a comment I saw a few years ago. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more captivating stories. Share your own experiences, opinions in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay tuned for more epic tales.